Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Incantation, a horror movie review podcast where we discuss both classic and current horror movies as well as everything in between. So, we're four friends from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, with a shared love and passion for everything that is horror. My name is Joe, and with me today are Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hi.
Caleb.
Hello.
And Lynn.
Hi guys.
So, this week for the very first episode, we will be doing, I guess some would say, the mother of all horror movies. Some would say it's
The
like
grandfather.
the grandfather, the greatest horror movie ever made, right? The Exorcist. The Exorcist is a 1973 American supernatural horror movie directed by William Friedkin, starring Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow. I'm butchering all these names. Lee Jacob, Kitty Wynn, Jack McRowan, right? So it is about a girl who is being possessed by a certain entity, right? For listeners, for in this modern day and age, that sounds like a plot to any other horror movies that we've seen already, right? But this is in 1973. So I guess this is one of the very first. I don't really know if there's any other possession horror movie that's been done before. So before we jump straight into this week's subject matter, let's just go around, since it's the first episode, let's just go around, introduce ourselves and what kind of horror movie do you like, and then maybe give us a little bit insight on The Exorcist. Did you like it? Was it scary for you? So maybe we can start with Lynn.
Thanks, Joe. So, hi guys, my name is Lynn. I'm a fan of psychological horror and supernatural horror. So, this movie, for a movie that's made in 1973, I think it's really, really good. The effects, the cinematography, I would definitely recommend this show. The scary bit, I probably think that it's not the usual scary that you get in this age, but for a 1973 movie, I think it's really cool. Yeah.
So was it scary for you? As I understand it, this is your first time watching The Exorcist, right?
Yes, it's my first time. To be honest, it wasn't really scary to me. It's a good plot, but it's not like a wow kind of scary, but it's good.
Right. Okay. Josh.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. You can't really talk about The Exorcist without talking about its reputation, right? So, like you mentioned, a lot of people hold it up as like the greatest horror film that's ever made. If you are anywhere near horror films, or if you enjoy horror films, you probably have heard stories about when it was first released. How people reacted towards the film. People fainting in the cinemas, or they had to leave halfway because they couldn't stand what they were seeing on the screen. It was even like banned in the UK from 1988 to 1999. Because,
In all the Middle Eastern countries were banned.
Yeah, it was just banned from home release there, right? But when you talk about its reputation, right, so this it is the first horror film ever to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
Right.
And it was nominated for like 10 Academy Awards, right?
Oh, 10.
And when you think about it, 10 of it. And when you think about it, there's only ever been 6 horror films that have ever been nominated for Best Picture. That really adds to its reputation, right?
Right.
And the fact that up until 2017, when it was overtaken by It Chapter 1, it was actually the highest grossing R-rated horror film of all time. And, you have publications like Empire and New York Times, they list it as one of the greatest movies ever made, right? But, it is a 47-year-old film, and we are currently in what I think is a golden age for horror films, right? We have so many good horror films out now. So does the Exorcist still hold up? Does it still stand the test of time? Short answer for me, hell yeah.
Right.
You know, I really love slow burn horror films, right? So films that focus on building dread instead of jump scares. They really take their time to lure you in before they really unleash all their different terrors. And you know, my favorites are films like House of the Dead or It Comes at Night. And you know, The Exorcist is really a masterclass in slow burn horror. You know, it's just filled with iconic moments. And when I think about, you know, horror films, right, and I think about confrontations between good and evil, one of the first thing that comes to mind is Max von Sydow's Father Merrin facing down a statue of the demon Pazuzu in an ancient Iraqi ruin. Right? So I guess, you know, it's safe to say I love The Exorcist wholeheartedly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Caleb,
Am I supposed to?
tell us about your first view experience. I mean, you've been a horror fan for quite some time, but you've never actually watched The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Right? So you watched The Exorcist recently, and tell us how you feel. Like, does it live up to the hype, or you know?
For for me, it's overhyped for me. So it's mostly
Sacrilege. That is sacrilege.
Your fault. Sacrilegious. Caleb says it's my fault because I'm always raving about The Exorcist. So it totally like overhyped it for me.
right, just like The Shining and the Blair Witch. You overhyped it for me. So this movie it's good. I mean, yeah, it's good. It's well written, well directed, but does it scare me? I would have to say no lah. I didn't lose sleep because of it.
Immediately went to a nap.
Right. Yeah, it's also because of a lot of like memes and parodies came out, especially the Scary Movie parody. It kind of ruined it for me.
So you actually watched the Scary Movie first, then you went to watch The Exorcist.
So a lot of scenes I've seen in parodies before I've seen the original scenes. So before the scenes came out, I was like starting to laugh already. So yeah, that kind of ruined it for me.
Such a waste.
Yeah.
Such a waste. Josh, your age and my age is showing, Josh.
Oh, man. Can I just tell you, like you know, like the first time I heard about The Exorcist, right, was when I was in primary school, right?
Right.
So like my friend had told me that, oh, you know, my family watched The Exorcist, and I was like, yeah, so how was? I mean, I've never heard of the film before, and he was like, it's so scary that by the time the film ended, everybody was just sitting in the room, all quiet, and then one person was like, oh, I need to go to the toilet now. And everybody was like, yeah, okay, let's go. and they all went together.
I actually had a similar story told to me. It was my dad. So I remember when I first wanted to watch The Exorcist. So my dad told me this is not a good movie to watch because the first time he watched it, mind you, I'm not gonna say when this movie came out and when I was born, but but my dad told me like after watching the movie, he didn't go to the toilet for straight like 2 weeks or something.
Oh, man.
It's probably exaggerated.
Yeah, I mean it's probably exaggeration, but that was the thing that I got from my dad, and I never watched it until like way later. And the first time I watched The Exorcist, I mean, I was probably is probably one of my first few horror films that I watched, and I was scared to death. Definitely a lot of iconic scenes, and the it's just the sense of oppression that's just creeping up and creeping up and ramping up and ramping up, and it really got to me. But then that was a few years ago. But this time when I watched it, I had a different feeling.
You didn't get the same experience.
I did not have the same experience.
Is this your second time?
This is my second time watching it actually. After I think more than 6 or 7 years. I think it's about 7 to 8 years, I suppose. But I had a different thing. I had a different feeling where the first time it was the supernatural aspect of it, right? This first time I was seeing this girl is being possessed, and then this priest is trying to cast her out. And I was entranced by it. I loved the supernatural aspect of it. But the second time watching it, I was more into the humanity of it, the mother's point of view, and then also the doctors and definitely what Reagan was being put through. That was the one that really got to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like The Exorcist, as you can tell already. So the first time I watched it, it was different. The second time I watched it, it was different from me, and it was scary for different reasons. So I really love The Exorcist. Right. So guys, this is the non-spoilery part of the review, I guess. So do stick with us, guys. Coming up next would be our spoiler talk.
Why this girl doesn't make sense.
The sour's mine! You know what she did? You help her! Just help her! The power of Christ compels you!
Welcome back. We are in the spoiler talk session of the podcast. So spoiler alert, if you haven't watched The Exorcist, a 40-plus-year-old movie, please go and watch it. But we are going to talk about spoilers. We're going to delve deep into the characters, their motivations, and what makes the film tick. Yeah. So first of all, maybe we're going to talk a little bit about what makes the film scary. I know maybe Caleb doesn't find it scary, but I really want to explore the mother's point of view in all of this, right? So I would say for me, watching Chris's reaction to all of this really struck a chord with me, because at the beginning, when they don't really know what's happening to Reagan, right? They put her through all this tests. They were prodding her, they were poking her, and then letting blood out, and then they're putting her in this loud, noisy scanning machine. It really, on my second viewing, it really made me remember my grandma. So it's kind of personal, but my grandma actually died from I forgot what she died from. I know. But it was a combination of a few different sicknesses, and at the end of her life, she was in the hospital a lot, and to see that she had to go through all these tests and doctor prodding her and poking her, and then taking blood, drawing blood, and in the end it just amounted to nothing, and then she just passed away anyway. So that was a really sad time for me, and this movie really brought that memory back, and it's a really sad thing. It's watch I mean, for me personally to watch the mother just helplessly sit through everything that they could throw at her daughter and then come up with nothing. That was really heartbreaking, and that was really terrifying for me. So what do you think about that aspect of the film, Lynn?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like it's she has been repeatedly been she was repeatedly told that her daughter has like psychological issues. I mean, there was something wrong with her brain, and she knows deep down inside that she witnessed the daughter being possessed. I mean, she would experience the bed shaking and whatnot, and to be told that it's just a mental issue, it's just in her mind. It's very heartbreaking for the mother. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Josh.
Yeah, one of the things about this film that I had forgotten, when you think about The Exorcist, there are some scenes that come to mind instantly, right? The coming down the stairs, the spider crawl scene, the head turning 360 degrees, or the vomit. But this time around watching it, one of the things that really disturbed me was all the medical tests that Reagan had to go through, right? And especially the angiography scene, the one where the needle is inserted into her neck and the blood starts coming out, and and it cuts to Chris's face, and you see like the horror that she has on her face because like her daughter is going through this, and there's nothing that she can do, the helplessness that she's going through. That scene actually, it actually has been William Friedkin, the director, said that that scene was actually used as a training film for radiologists later on, because it was so accurate the way that they were depicting that. But yeah, Ellen Burstyn, right, who plays Chris, in my opinion, is really the anchor of the film.
Right.
It would have been so easy for her to play Chris as this out of control or hysterical mom, right? And we have seen that in numerous other horror films. But you can see that she's trying to stay so much in control, trying to hang in there for Reagan's sake, right? And she has so much restraint that when she actually finally breaks down, right? First with the doctors and then later with Father Karras, you can really sense the depth of her frustration and her helplessness. That, how no one seems to be able to help Megan. And I agree with you. I think that was really, this time around watching it, that's really one of the most horrifying aspects of this film.
Right. So Caleb, do you have anything to add?
For me, I actually, while I was watching, I placed myself in Reagan's shoe instead of the mother, right? To have to be at the scene with where Josh talked about, where they have to insert a needle into her neck, and the whole time I was like, what's going on? Like this just amplifies my fear of hospital. Like being in a hospital, having things done to me that I can't do anything about, right? And you don't know if they're doing it right or not. That the whole helplessness of Regan also,
and I really love the way how they ramp up the dread and the horror in the film through these hospital scenes, right? So the first time we see a hospital is, Reagan is in this really, it's really quite pleasant, she's with the nurse, she's with the doctor, everything is fine. And then you see Father Karras visiting his mom in the hospital, and that is for me, it was a really disturbing scene, just seeing how cramped it was such a great contrast with that earlier scene, because it was side by side with Reagan being in the hospital for the first time, right? And you see, on the other side, on the flip side, if you are not poor, not rich, if you are not privileged, then this is where you're going, right? In this kind of hospital setting. And then from there, it just amps up, right? Every time Reagan goes to hospital, the procedures get worse, her behavior gets worse. And I think it was just a really great way to demonstrate and to make it more real, more lived in, that anybody who has ever had someone go through procedures in the hospital, like Joe, like you mentioned with your grandma,
Right.
you can really relate to that, right? And I think that's really what makes one of the things that make The Exorcist such a great film. It's just so relatable.
I mean, you can see like the doctors. I mean, you literally can see the contrast between the priest, right? She hired a whole army of the doctors, and in the end, they were just clueless. They were just sitting around the table. They couldn't do anything, and then she just freaks out.
They suggested exorcism.
And in the end, they just went about like a roundabout way of suggesting exorcism. So that was just really, you can really feel that the mom, Chris, is just at her wit's end already, and she really does not know what's gonna happen, and she doesn't know what to do at all. So I think the film really does it well with the hopelessness aspect of it, where they just take away all hope, and then you're just gonna have to ride it out, and then you're just gonna have to watch this thing happen to your daughter, right? So what about what's also interesting is the Father Karras character, right? Where he's struggling between science and also psychology, and also his faith, right? So maybe Lynn, you can tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah. So basically, Father Karras was, I think he graduated in psychology. I mean, he practiced psychiatry as well. And then he also went into priesthood. So he also struggled a bit with his faith. I believe in the earlier parts of the show, he was quite far from his mother. And the mother wasn't feeling well as well, and he felt guilty that he had to leave her behind, and eventually, she died in the hospital. So he was struggling a bit with his faith as well, like, should he leave priesthood or should he not? And there is some thought process around like exorcism doesn't work anymore at that point of time, because for them in 1973 it's probably a time where they don't believe in exorcism anymore, because like there's science, that there are so many ways to prove that it's all in the mind, right? So with that struggle as well, he is not sure if exorcisms would work for Regan eventually in the later part of the show. But yeah, he struggled between like what's reality and what's spiritual. Yeah.
I mean, there was a scene where the father was sort of like testing out whether Regan is really possessed, and then he was like sprinkling so-called holy water into it, and then I think the demon sort of like knows this struggle that he has, and then he's just messing with him, and then
Yeah.
he's just trying to bring down his faith, and then even further corrode his faith, right?
Yeah, that's I think that same scene was the same time where the demon actually said, your mother is with us as well. So that's how he kind of like, okay, maybe this is true. Like, if the demon could know that his mother is dead, where Regan and Chris didn't know eventually, in the beginning, yeah, I think that was when he kind of believed that it's a real spirit that's in her. It's not just in the mind.
But he was still doubting at that point, wasn't he? I mean, at the end where he had the conversation with the mother, and he said, did you tell her about my mother? And then I mean, the mother knows about it, and then why would she know about it? And he's still very, very unsure of his faith. I mean, even until the end, he was sort of like not sure.
Yeah, but I think the thing about Father Karras is that he's trying to reconcile science and faith, right? One of the things that I find really, really interesting about this film is how, after The Exorcist came out, the Catholic Church just wholeheartedly embraced it. The director I was reading an interview that he gave to Entertainment Weekly, where he said that he told a story about how the head of the Jesuit order of the time actually had his own print of The Exorcist in his headquarters in Milan, and he would show it to like the bishops and the cardinals that were there. And it was just so influential, right? That after it came out, thousands of people in the US started claiming that they too have been afflicted by demonic possession, right? Jason Miller, who plays Father Karras, he will be walking down the street in New York, and people will be trying to touch his jacket, telling him, "Father, I have a son, please help me." And then he will have to tell them, I'm just an
real?
actor,
This actually happened.
That happened.
Yeah, it really happened.
Wow.
But this theme, right, it's just so resonant, right? The how in this modern age we place a lot of faith in science, in medicine to help us, but at the same time, there is this struggle between, should we put our faith wholeheartedly just in medicine and what science tells us, or is there an element of the unknown, of the spiritual, that can actually help us, right? When we're talking about Father Karras, I think the thing that for me really stands out about Jason Miller's performance is just how honestly he plays Father Karras. And this is really down to the script, right? Like how, Father Karras openly admits that he has lost his faith, or when he tells Chris that, he doesn't know all the signs of possession, and he's trying to convince her that there must be a medical reason behind Regan's suffering.
Right.
And you can really see that guilt in his eyes when, for not being able to be there for his mom, and the horror that he feels when, Pazuzu taunts him that his mother is in hell. While Chris, like I mentioned, is the foundation upon which this film is built, Father Karras is really this embodiment of this really, really strong theme of science versus faith. It's one of the main themes in this film.
Right. Nothing, Caleb?
No.
Father Karras, I feel is even until the end of the film, right before he asked the demon to possess him, I felt like he was still struggling, and
He was still doubting.
he was still doubting, and he was still fearing.
Yeah.
But I guess in the end, he just takes that step of just, I understand now, this is a demon, and then this is what I have to do, and I mean, if you're going to take anyone, then you take me lah, right? So I felt that was that character is really, in my opinion, is really strong character lah.
Yeah, but I interpreted that slightly differently. I saw it as a step of faith, right? Like, he is doubting all the way up to that point, and for it to fully take that step and fully embrace the spiritual or the demonic aspect of this entire encounter with Regan or Pazuzu, where he's like, to prove this is really demonic possession, come into me, right? Take possession of me.
Right.
And it's also a way for him to atone for the guilt that he feels for abandoning his mom. Like, I abandoned my mom, I'm not going to abandon this girl.
Oh, you were saying?
I just wanted to say that it's kind of, there's like how the show how the show was cut. I don't know if it's the script or what, but it's weird to me when, like, the doctor, they went to the house, they saw Regan doing all these things, impossible things,
Right.
like super strength and all that stuff. They still like denying that it's
muscle spasms.
like they're still saying it's muscle spasm when she's like jumping up and down while sleeping horizontally.
Right.
So also when Father Karras went to the house and see for the first time, he was also doubting when she was like making the drawer fly out and stuff. So it's just a small thing that.
I mean, how do you even explain that, like the
Right?
drawer flying out?
Right? How could they not like start to believe that it's not science and it's something supernatural?
I mean, you can see like Father Karras is sort of like want to believe, but he can't really believe, and then he's like half in, half out. He's really throughout the show, you can see that he's really doubting all this way. He's swaying left and then he's swaying right. So he in the end, I felt that the moment that he took control and he said, "You come into me," then he just jumped out the window. I felt that it was a great end to his character. I don't know, maybe I'm sadistic or something.
I agree though. Like I think that was Father Karras's character was like the hope for me lah. Like yeah, I think the struggle between science and faith was very prominent within that character. So I actually like that move that he did in the last scene. Yeah, I don't think it's sadistic lah. I think it's just I think it's just a great and
Right, it's sort of like foreshadowed as well, right, with the detective investigating the death of that director guy, Burke. Right, see,
he just fell off the window.
He was like, I think he was babysitting Reagan or something like that, and then he died. His head was twisted 360 degrees backwards. And that's not 360, I mean, that's 180. But yeah, it was twisted backwards, and he fell out the theory is that he fell out the window down to the stairs, and that's exactly what happened to Karras as well. So let's talk about Reagan, the main star of the show. Linda Blair is, I don't know how she survived this movie. She is crazy. The things that she has to do, right?
The things she have to endure in the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about just that. I mean, as the actor, Linda Blair as the actor.
Yeah.
She has to endure like being thrown around, I suppose, right? She has to be thrown around, right? She has to levitate, and she has to throw down, she has to puke, she has to like does obscene things, and she has to say really obscene things.
yeah.
But did she really say those things? I thought it was dubbed over by someone else.
It was dubbed over, but I think if I read correctly, is that she has to say those things first, and then it was dubbed later.
Uh-oh.
And then when Father Marin, this is a bit of trivia, as Father Marin actually was at a loss for words. He actually forgot his script when Reagan was speaking to him and then was saying all these obscenities. He was just stunned. He forgot his script. Yeah, he didn't actually expect that he was gonna have to react to this.
Did he not read? Did he not read the script beforehand?
Sorry?
Did he not read the script beforehand?
I'm not sure, but that's what I read. And I guess it's a combination of her makeup, her prosthetics, and then the way that she's acting. I mean, it just makes it so real. And then I guess he just lost focus. I'm not sure. But Josh, do you have any thoughts on Reagan? The whole process of her. From we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but from her beginning and then her progression throughout, and how actually she turned into this hideous, grotesque thing at the end.
Yeah. She is, I mean, the face of Linda Blair, once she has been fully possessed, right, is really one of the most iconic imagery in horror films, right? And
Right.
I remember when I was a teenager and I hadn't yet seen The Exorcist. And there was this one time I was in a bookstore and I was flipping through this book on The X-Files. Because The X-Files was and still is one of my favorite series of all time. And they were showing like production notes and how they make the X-Files and where they drew the influences from, right? And one of the pictures in that book was a face, was Reagan's demon-possessed, torn-up, smiling face. I nearly pissed my pants when I saw that face smiling out at me from the book, and it is really a horrifying performance. For someone that, especially I had forgotten how much of the film goes by before she actually gets fully possessed. and you actually get to see, Reagan as this really nice, really sweet girl at the start, having a really great relationship with her mom, and how she then deteriorates from there. And I think one of the things that really stood out for me was that she's always dressed in this white flowing clothing, right? It's really this wonderful metaphor for Reagan's innocence, even while she's being possessed by this pure evil. Right? Yeah.
Do we know how she got possessed? Was it the Ouija board?
I mean, the film suggests that it was the Ouija board, but I felt that was a bit weak. Maybe it's just because we've seen so many other horror films.
But she said that she communicated with someone else and not,
Captain Howdy.
yeah,
Right.
but he didn't come out at the end, at the later half of the film. They didn't mention him anymore.
And
Yeah,
I guess that
but
goes
for-
to... Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, but for me, I actually thought that my recollection of the film before watching it again today was that there was a stronger link between the Ouija board, Captain Howdy, and her possession. But it's that connection is not really made in the film, right? It's just one of the things that is like a suggestion that maybe she could have been possessed due to this.
Right.
But I actually really like that because I think once you see the things that Reagan is going through, right?
doesn't really
How she
matter.
got possessed really doesn't matter anymore, right? It's so horrific what is happening to her. And I think the film is really smart in choosing what it wants to focus on and is comfortable leaving a lot of things unsaid or not being fully explored. Of course, we then have two films that actually explore Father Merrin's background. Two really, really bad films, Dominion and Exorcist, The Beginning. So, but that's the problem, right? Like nowadays we feel that we need to explain everything, or directors feel that they need to put every bit of lore and trivia on the screen, and The Exorcist proves you don't need to do that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with Josh that some things are okay to be left unexplained, like how did she get possessed? I think when she visited the psychiatrist, there was a suggestion that she was also depressed. That could also mean that that could also suggest that she is disappointed with her father because the father actually didn't wish her for a birthday or something like that, and she overheard the conversation. So I think that could also contribute to her unstable mental state, I believe. But it's totally fine not to be explained because the rest of the movie already take the movie to greater heights. So I think I agree with Josh on that one.
What actually stood out to you with Reagan's possession, right? I mean, you have the 360 head spin and the other things.
I think the exorcism process, that 20 minutes of that scene was quite draining for me because it's so tense, and that would be one of the scenes that I will never forget. And that's the hope for me because in the earlier part of this review, I mentioned that it's not scary, but the plot is good. And this is the exact scene that I won't forget because there are so many elements of like how the demon was also tormenting Father Karras, like making him, guilt tripping him, and it also appeared to what's his name, Father Merrin, as that demon that he saw in Iraq. So that demon entity is also quite ambiguous. We don't really know what the entity is or how many entities are there. So I think that was a really impactful scene.
Well, for me is the spider walk. My God, the first time I saw it, it really that scene really came out of nowhere, right? I mean, the mom was talking, and then randomly you just hear this thumping noise, and then you see this oh my God, unnatural thing just plowing down the stairs, and then she just vomits blood. I mean, that scene, the first time I saw it, I think I had chills, and I couldn't get that scene out of my head after that. The head spin thing, I don't know whether I've seen too many horror movies already, but that didn't really do anything. But the spider man coming down the stairs, I mean, it's still in my head right now, replaying over and over again. But that's the Reagan's face. Yeah, like Josh said, would remain one of the most iconic horror movie images that would, I think, last forever, I suppose. I mean, you see her anywhere whenever there's like mention of any horror movies and whatnot, right? So let's talk a little bit about the making of the movie, because as much as the story plot itself is interesting, I think what's interesting as well is the making of it. I would say there's a lot of freaky stuff that actually happened. First of all, the movie is actually based on a true story, and the person that is actually possessed is actually a boy, not a girl, and they changed the boy into a girl to sort of like protect his identity and whatnot. It said that during the exorcism, he managed to actually freed himself from the restraint and then sort of like pulled out a spring from the mattress and sort of like started to slash the priest on the arms and things like that. And after the whole ordeal, the boy just don't remember anything at all. Right. So that's the film that's based on the novel, that's based on the true story, right? And the other freaky stuff also included like the whole of the house was actually burned, caught fire. The whole house caught fire, which set the shooting dates back like I think like 6 weeks or something like that. But the freaky thing is that Reagan's room, the demonic room, was unharmed.
Demonic room.
And then when Reagan was doing that, I would say crucifix scene, and then she kind of like slapped the mother, and the mother fell backwards, right?
Yeah.
And then you can hear this horrific scream from the mother. That was actually the actor being in real pain, because the rig that she was. The rig that was supposed to pull her back malfunctioned, and she actually hurt her back, and she suffered sort of like permanent back injury.
Is that why she didn't appear at the end of the movie?
I am not sure, but she actually suffers permanent spinal injury because of that fall. Other things also include Burke, the director, the actor Jack McGowan, and Vasquez, Father Carras' mother, both died while the film was in post-production. The real actors died when the film was in post-production, and freakily, their characters died in the film. Right? We didn't see the director die.
In the same way?
Not in the same way. We didn't see the director die. It was suggested that he died in a really gruesome way, and then Father Carras' mother as well died in the film as well as in real life, the actor, and both of them died during the post-production. So these are some of the freaky stuff that actually connected. There was actually a total of 9 deaths, if I'm not mistaken, that is connected to the movie.
That sounds more like the plot to Ouija.
Yeah, that sounds more like a plot to The Grudge or something like that, right? Anyone who's tied to the movie. I mean, that's the real life horrific stuff lah. So, maybe
they took inspiration.
Maybe I should stop scaring our listeners.
I'm lost for words. Bye, guys.
That's horrific.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe we should stop scaring our listeners, and maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the
Design.
the casting, right? Maybe Josh can enlighten us on that.
Well, I think one of the when looking into like the creation of this film, there were a couple of things that really stood out to me. One of them, actually, this is a bit more lighthearted, I suppose, is when the scene where Reagan is projectile vomiting, and it hits Father Karras in the face, right? And actually in that scene, Jason Miller, who plays Father Karras, his reaction is actually real. Because the hose that was supposed to spray him was actually supposed to be aimed at his chest or something like that, and it just sprayed him in the face. So the disgust and the anger that you actually see from him is actually a genuine reaction to that happening, and I felt that was brilliant. The other thing was actually Mercedes McCambridge, right, who plays the voice actor who plays the Pazuzu, or the voice of the possessed Reagan, and to get that kind of pain, raw, demonic sound, right? She actually told William Friedkin that she would need to gargle raw eggs and alcohol, and she needs to start chain smoking again. And she actually, we talk about method acting, right? But she actually performed most of the dialogue strapped to a chair with her hands tied behind her back.
She actually was restrained.
So dedicated.
Yeah, she actually was restrained in order to be able to get the kind of effect that you hear in the film, right? And she asked for two of her priest friends to be with her on the soundstage at all times. And there will be some times where after she records the lines, that she would just break down crying, and she would need to be, comforted or counseled by those priests. And all of this, I think, really shows in the film, right? Reagan's voice is truly unforgettable. It's really one of the greatest pieces of voice acting of all time, I think. It really is like, whenever you think about anybody sounding demon-possessed, the first thing that comes to my mind is Mercedes McCambridge's voice.
Right. Have you heard her original voice before?
No, actually, I haven't. But she has done several other films. So
Right.
she did win awards for her voice acting in the past. So maybe her voice might sound familiar, but I think her most iconic role would still be the voice of Reagan in The Exorcist.
So, speaking with Caleb, is it the greatest horror film that has ever made?
Is it the greatest horror film that's ever made? And my answer is going to be so triggering.
Controversial.
Is it the greatest horror film ever made during that time? I would say yes.
1973, right?
For that time, yeah. Because everyone's discovering their craft, probably at the time.
No one's ever seen this before.
Right? Yeah.
No one's seen anything like
But
this.
in 2020, I've seen like so many other messed up stuff that is much crazier, much more intense. Is it the greatest? Not for me, I'm sorry. But it's still a good film.
Right. So maybe you can give us your rating.
My rating can be good. Solid 7 out of
A
10.
A solid 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10!
Josh is triggered.
I'll take my leave.
What about you, Lynn?
I think I agree with Caleb. Half agree. I mean, I don't agree completely. I think it's a very good horror film to be used as a benchmark for other possession horror films. I would say it's the mother of, I mean, like how Elvis Presley is king of rock and roll, right? I think The Exorcist is probably like the mother of horror films lah. It's probably not the greatest if you're comparing to anything that we've seen in our generation lah, like 2020 or a few years before this. We have seen a lot of great horror movies that are being produced at this age. But for a 1973 movie, I think it's a really, really good movie. I would give like an 8.5 out of 10. And I would watch it again if, not in 2 or 3 months, but probably on an annual basis lah.
Wow.
once a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great compliment.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't watched The Exorcist more than twice. I mean, this is my second.
You watch Alien more than this.
Yeah.
I mean, The Thing.
The Thing. I mean, I watched The Thing annually. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, The Exorcist will always be like the benchmark, like what Lynn said. Any exorcism scene that comes out from any horror movie would be immediately compared to The Exorcist. Right. They're like this movie is like the standard of of any kind of exorcism scene. Even if you watch like Korean exorcism scenes, they sort of like take the cues from The Exorcist, right?
It inspired a lot of other films.
Yeah, it inspired a whole bunch of other films, right? Some of them are even like beat for beat, right? The priest comes in, and then there will be two priests, and then one priest will be the strong one, the other one will be the weak one that is being manipulated by the demon, and then he's the one that's gonna set the thing free. I mean, it has become a trope, right? But The Exorcist, like for me, it's the first time viewing it, the second time viewing it, like I said at the beginning of the review, is totally different kind of dread and sense of terror, I would suppose, right, for me. So the first time was the supernatural stuff that caught me, but the second time was the humanity of it, and me watching it as a father having a daughter, I think that just takes it to a different kind of level where I'm just imagining, what if this is my daughter? And I just stopped at that. It's like, okay, enough. I'm not going to go down that road. Right? So The Exorcist for me definitely is a 9 out of 10 for me. Josh.
Joe, so you described this as the gold standard for exorcism films, right?
Right.
For me, it is the gold standard for all of horror cinema, right? And there's a reason why it's that, even after almost 50 years having been released. I think the main, maybe one of the questions that we have to wrestle with when we're coming up with our closing thoughts on the ratings is, can a film truly be considered the greatest horror film of all time if it is not the scariest, right? Because even for someone who loves the film as deeply as I do, I acknowledge that this time around when watching it, and this is my third time watching it, that, having seen it a few times already, there are some scenes that will naturally lose its impact because you know what's coming. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of dread that's in the film, as you mentioned, but are there any scenes that are truly horrifying? I would say yes, there is, but maybe it's not scary, right? It's not really scary. But I think when you consider its legacy, when you think about the way of how it builds up dread, right? The director came out and in the interview with Entertainment Weekly said, for the first 45 minutes of the film, nothing happens. And it's true, nothing happens for the first 45 minutes. But it's setting up all the different themes that's going to be paid off by the end of the film. The relationship, the mother-daughter relationship, the battle between science and faith, Father Karras's struggle with his loss of faith, the depths that Regan will have to go through when the exorcism is actually being conducted, and how so many of its themes are still deeply resonant and still relevant today. We haven't actually really talked about the cinematography, but the cinematography is great in this film. It's a gorgeous film to look at, right? The writing is amazing. The acting is brilliant. So, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Yeah, this is the greatest horror film that's ever been made. Rating, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Wow, 10 out of 10. We're just going to start the first episode with a 10 out of 10.
It's all downhill from here, guys.
It's all downhill.
Where else can we go?
Right. So maybe, George, you can tell us a little bit if you enjoyed Exorcism, what other films that you could actually watch to get close to the level of enjoyment, since this is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So if you enjoy the themes of religion and wrestling with faith, right? One of the best horror films in recent years is The Witch. So it's a slow burn, atmospheric horror film that's set in 1630 New England, where because of a religious conflict, a family decides to leave a small town and they settle on their own on the edge of a forest. And there, their faith in God and their faith in each other really is shaken when a disaster falls on that family, right? So if you are into, if you enjoy seeing people going through, I mean, enjoy probably isn't the best word for it, but if you want to see more horror films where people go through a crisis of faith or where families are shaken to their foundations due to what is happening to other family members, The Witch is a film that I would highly, highly recommend. And that one actually is my favorite horror film of all time. So,
Right. So maybe we'll see a review of that film further down the road, right?
yeah,
Another 10.
yeah, hopefully.
Another 10 out of 10, right?
That one's
Lynn, maybe you
11
have
out
some
of 10.
11 out of 10, that's cheating. Lynn, maybe you have some recommendations for us as well?
I think one of the recent ones would be The Conjuring. Yeah, I mean, it probably doesn't have a lot of religious aspects because, I mean, the family, the parent family, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name of the family, they were not religious, but I think the possession of that demon in The Conjuring was somewhat, I mean, it reminds me of, this movie reminds me of that movie. So yeah, it's a mainstream one. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably have watched The Conjuring, but yeah, that's a close one that I could think of.
Okay, so my recommendation would be The Taking of Deborah Logan, which coincidentally is what we will be talking about in the next episode of Incantation. The Taking of Deborah Logan is a 2014 American found footage supernatural horror film. It is a feature directorial debut of Adam Robitel. So it tells the story of a documentary crew making a film about an Alzheimer patient named Deborah Logan, and something sinister happens while they were filming, right? So if you want to watch The Taking of Deborah Logan, then you can, and then you can listen to us ramble about it in the next episode. So a bit of a segue for this podcast, each of us will actually be taking turns to pick films to review based on a particular theme. And for our very first theme, we have of course picked possession as the theme. So for the next few episodes, we will be talking about films that has the theme possession. And like I said, the next episode will be The Taking of Deborah Logan. So that's it for this episode. Do give us a like or a 5-star rating, subscribe or follow, and all that good stuff from whatever platform that you are listening to help us grow our channel and to bring you more horror content. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.